Hey, I'm going to give you 4 important things that you need to know and do to detect a gas leak to make sure and keep your family safe. And I also want to tell you about the scariest thing that's ever happened in my entire DIY experience, a time when I almost sent my entire family to meet St. Peter. Okay, the first step at identifying a gas leak and keeping you and your family safe is to use your senses. Part of that, I mean your common sense, but really, I mean literally your senses of especially smell, but sometimes if the leak is really bad, you can taste it in the air. All right, so welcome to my mechanical room. This is probably one of the most common places that you're gonna have a gas leak because, at least in my situation, I have multiple appliances that use natural gas. I've got my furnace here that's natural gas, and then I've got 2 water heaters that are behind me. Now in our home, we also have a natural gas dryer and a natural gas oven. And then I have 1 gas line that goes out to a barbecue. So any of those places are likely to have a gas leak. And if I smell gas in the home, the first place I'm going to check is going to be in those places where the appliances are. And so I would check the mechanical room first and foremost. Every homeowner, every home renter, if you live in a home, you should have one of these. It's a gas leak detector. So the second thing I'm going to do is if I do notice something, if I smell something or taste something, I'm going to take my gas detector and I'm going to go around to every location where I have a natural gas appliance or a propane appliance and where it comes into the home, so the meter. And I'm going to identify where the leak is with this. Once you know you have a gas leak and you've got it isolated to where you want, the third step is going to be to get some Dawn Power Wash. And this may seem like the goofiest thing in the world, but this is the single best gas leak detector that there is. Don't go to a plumbing supply store and pay a ton of money for the goops or the goos. Online, you're going to see a lot of people that say just take some water and mix in some soap, and that works kind of. This is 1,000 times more effective. All you got to do is spray this on the joint where you think the leak might be coming from, and it will tell you immediately if that's where your leak is. If you spray it on there and it just kind of stays and then fizzles and drops off, no leak. If you spray this on there and all of a sudden you see it like a breathing creature and you see a bunch of air bubbles popping up from the joint, that's your leak. So the third step is to use Dawn Power Wash to identify specifically which joint it is that the leak, or which joint the gas is leaking out of. Okay, so let me tell you about the single scariest thing, maybe in my entire life, but certainly as it involves my own DIY projects. We were just moving into this house. We'd spent all day moving things from my wife's parents' home where we had been living into this home. They were returning from a mission for the church, and my wife was bound and determined that we were not going to be living in that house when they got back. So we were moving out no matter what. Spent all day moving, went to the airport, picked them up, celebrated their return. It was probably 11 o'clock at night when we finally came to the house to spend our first night in the home. Beds weren't put together yet, mattresses were still on the floor, but we were excited. And then my wife smelled gas. Now, the right thing to do is to walk around with your gas detector, and instead I got a little bit frustrated and kind of told her it will be fine, we'll look into it in the morning. She was very nervous. I was very dismissive. I was probably a little bit sleep deprived and definitely was not using my common sense. Luckily, and I say luckily with a little tongue in cheek, the kid that had installed our trim had cut everything in the house, and the smoke detector in this room that's right there, that smoke detector, the cover had fallen off and it had filled with the MDF fine dust that comes out when you're cutting those with a chop saw or with a miter saw. And so when we flipped on the smoke detectors, that one had gone bad, and so it set off all of the smoke detectors. I had zero desire to try and troubleshoot that. So I packed everybody up in the car, we drove to a hotel, we stayed there. I came back the next morning with a new smoke detector, I plugged that in, the smoke detectors quit going off, but now I could smell the natural gas. Walked around with my detector, I detected natural gas in the entire home. I could not tell where it was. So I had to go outside. We shut off the natural gas. I opened all the windows. I let it air out. I came back the next day. So now we're in a hotel for 2 nights. I came back the next day and turned the natural gas on, walked around with my meter, and I got a little bit of a smell here. I got a ton up in the attic. And what we discovered is that right here in this space, the black pipe, because of an adjustment we made at the request of the inspector in the mechanical room, the black pipe had twisted just ever so slightly and was allowing gas to escape. And it would fill the wall space here and then go up into the attic. So we had to cut a big hole here. I used my Dawn dish soap and sprayed it on there, the power wash. Identified for sure that that was where the leak was coming from. I was able to back that black pipe out, re-dope the joint, put it back together, waited 24 hours. So now it's 3 days in a hotel because my wife was not going to go back and stay with her parents. Waited 24 hours, tested several times to make sure that I wasn't going to have any issues. Then I was able to patch up the hole and we were able to move into the home. But it delayed us 3 days. Now, when I think about what could have happened, it scares me to death. 6 of my kids were here with us. 6 of my 7 kids were here with us. If anything had arced, if we had turned on the oven or the furnace kicked on, whatever, any kind of a spark could have sent this entire home into oblivion. And like I said, certainly would have sent my family to meet St. Peter at the pearly gates. Most of them would have gotten in. I'm not sure about me. But now the 4th step is to turn off the gas out at the meter. And once you've done that, you just take a wrench and turn that to the off position. Now you can come in and you can undo the coupling or the joint that was allowing the gas to escape. And then depending on your choice of your preference, you can use, they have a yellow Teflon tape. They have a yellow tape that you can put on the threads that will help seal the joint. Or it's messier, but I like pipe dope. And it's kind of like a putty with a brush on it, and you brush that onto the threads. Let that set up for just a second, and then screw that into the joint or back into the appliance. Go back out, turn your gas line back on, and then the last step is to take your power wash and spray it back onto that joint and see if the gas leak has gone away. Basically, if you live in a home, you need to know what to do if you smell gas. How are you going to identify where that leak is? And if you do identify where the leak is, how do you know how to fix it? This is not necessarily a DIY kind of a situation, as it is just a common sense. If you live in a home with natural gas and propane, you need to know how to do these things.